One. Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lammermont Weber, and we have a continuation today of a program with bearklanmother Karen Lucyk macdonald and Sergeant Pattie Brassard that people have been communicating to me, when is part 2 coming out? And people are looking forward to it. The general topic of this program, which is Wednesday, July 3rd, 2019, is Earth Changes. And I know that over the last half century, at least, there have been many books and many channelings and many predictions about Earth changes, because we are in a period of Earth changes. And so I'm looking forward to this panel. And I'm turning it over to you guys to start. So Pattie and Karen, Earth changes.
Well, the biggest that is at the root of a lot of issues out there is when we go above the galactic plane like we are now, and we're getting more incoming energy and our brown dwarf is parked in orbit, the Earth is expanding. And that's the root of a whole pack of problems, including sinkholes, landslides, cracks opening in the ground. Case in point, the ocean globally has dropped more than 8 inches, even though we still have what seems to be flooding and rising sea levels. It's not. Case in point, like Florida, that's because they're actually depleting the aquifer that runs under it. So the whole place is just sinking. The water's not coming up, the land is sinking. And that's going on in a lot of coastal places. And other coastal places are coming up, like case in point, that place in Brazil where the whole harbor washed out and never really came back. We're getting a lot of level changes. So that's behind a lot of it. On top of that, with the pole shift coming on, we have a weakening electromagnetic shield, which is letting in a lot more energy. Couple that with the making nuclear rods and their release of CFCs, more than 800 tons a year per location, our ozone is gone. So that's letting UVC through, which is now surpassed level 50, and that's cooking everything. So that also causes health problems and more cancers, and that's all aside from the stuff the cabal's been doing and dumping in the atmosphere and all of that. So yeah, it's getting interesting, especially in the northeast of the United States. That whole plate is breaking off and twisting clockwise, separate from everything else. So it's creating a new fracture line. So that's gonna, the northwest is gonna be not too healthy a place to be living soon. Comments?
Yeah, Pattie, you said northeast several times.
The northwest. I meant the northwest.
And then you corrected yourself.
Northwest.
Yeah. Could you go more deeply?
I can actually share the diagram of the movements.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to ask if you could share that, and then some of the different tectonic plates, the way they're moving right through.
Yes, I mean, I can show the graphics on that, because I have been keeping track of it via the GPS movement stuff they've got in the ground up there. Let me get the picture up here, and then I'll do a share screen. And then there's the rising and lowering, and that's another graphic entirely. But the stresses, you know, more shows out more in the actual movement. Let's say if it share here.
Some of the play too would involve with some of the radiation levels out there right now too with Hanford and stuff.
You see, you got a sort of a clockwise movement going here, but up here is where it's all going one direction. This is going up, but this is going in, and it's creating a rotation here. As you can see, these arrows here are coming this way. So you have like a circular zone up here that's moving entirely separate from the rest of the plate. That's creating a lot of stress.
Right. Now you've cut it off at about the 49th parallel,
Mm-hmm.
and the state of Washington, of course. Extending it up, you've got all of British Columbia, and then you've got
what they call
Alaska.
what they call the 3 points zone, which is this here, the meeting of the 3 states. That seems to be the center of the rotation.
I see. So that's Oregon, Washington,
and Idaho. Yeah.
I see.
And then you have the rising and lowering of the ground vertically, which is, where's my map with that? Right here.
And I'm looking as well as at the Cascadia subduction as well, and the stuff that's going off the coast, and then right into, I mean, under what you would call British Columbia and Alberta.
This is all coming up, and this is all dropping. And bear in mind, out here you have the Juan de Fuca plate pushing under the seaside edge, lifting this up, and it's dropping here. So this is all going to kind of like fracture and break loose, just from the tectonic stresses on it.
Do you have a time frame for those events? Those projected
These
events?
are the rates. The darker blue is minus dropping 4 millimeters per year, and all the way up to the red, which is +4. So it's moving pretty quick on geological scales. That's fast.
Now, you mentioned a pole shift. People have been talking about both a magnetic pole shift and a physical pole shift. Could you talk about both of these?
The magnetic pole shift is actually a weakening of it, whereas the physical one, it's Earth has always had a what we call a major wobble that causes the physical one to kind of wiggle around. The magnetic one, it's accelerating, faster and faster, and it's not. The north and south magnetic poles are not moving at the same rate. The north one's moving at like 56 and the 57, and the south is moving at 46. So the pole, the magnetic pole, if you will, no longer goes through the center. It's off-centered now. And that's actually contributing to the wobble of the actual pole.
Are you able to provide a picture, the one where we had the 2, but where it looked like it was going into 4 into 8, because it's not just 2 poles anymore, right?
No, well, magnetically it's like 4.
Yeah. Right, that's what I wanted to show a picture of, so people can get a visual idea that there's no longer a north and a south pole like a magnet. We are.
I want to show the I've got it in here somewhere, the actual pole, north, the track of the pole, to give people an idea of the wobble. I'm just trying to figure out where I put it.
And some of the
In this folder.
with this, again, there's a lot of stuff going in where they're doing preparation, as they've been saying, you know, up to 4 states away. I guess part of the thing too that I'd like to either calm people down or get them prepared, you know, or relocation. And we could maybe talk about some of those things as well. Because in that area too, Alfred, I'm aware of the radiation levels in Hannaford and stuff like that. And a lot of my clients that I do for consults and health stuff, I mean, we're seeing extreme radiation illness. So it's 5G on top of like radiation.
See, that's a sample of the track of our pole. When I say there's a wobble, I mean there's a wobble. There's always been a wobble.
Not
And
getting
that's just getting, you're not getting it?
No, we're still on the
Share. Share.
Here we go.
There's always been a wobble, and it's only getting worse. As the magnetics go off center, this is getting worse. And this is what's, you know, got the Eskimos upset to the point where they went to Congress and complained to them because the sun and moon aren't coming up and setting where they were before, and they use those at the end of their hunting to guide themselves to their homes, which is a problem.
Do we have something more updated since 2012 here, 13?
No, they closed out the live feed on that sort of stuff. They don't want people knowing about this. Same thing with the magnetic. They don't want people knowing about the magnetic either. All the live online stuff, they're taking it offline.
Is there the one that, and when I'm thinking of specifically, it's one of the globe, and it's got in the reds and the blues and showing how it's moving throughout the whole planet? You got that one?
I mean, I can try and go in there again, but the last time I checked, it was offline. Give me a second. I'll see if I can go in there live. Where is it?
Well, now, I remember writing back in 1973 when I wrote the Age of Cataclysm, and that was a book that looked at the possibility of large-scale cataclysm. And some of the large-scale cataclysms that were predicted then, which on the catastrophic timeline did not occur because we had the intervention of the positive timeline that came along in 2012, were seen by a number of psychics and by a number of prophetic traditions, Isaiah and others. Casey saw a pole shift in which, you know, the physical poles shifted such that tropical areas became frigid and vice versa. And we tried to, in that book, The Age of Cataclysm, we tried to integrate some of the psychic visions and the prophecy into what was happening then back in 75, 76, which was the first kind of earth sciences that came out. We tried to integrate those two. Do you see cataclysms at that scale now, or is it, because these are relatively tame based on those cataclysmic visions, which, you know, are not occurring because we shifted over to a positive timeline as of 2012.
You also, that's the whole thing. You got to take into consideration the fact that a lot of these prophecies were prior to us actively becoming engaged in nudging timelines and moving over to a more positive one. I've got the live magnetic. It's this one here. Let me get this out of the way.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, this is the current magnetic, and you see it's like 4 lobes. And this is the south magnetic, and the north magnetics over here. So I mean, this is not going through the center anymore. And this is why you're having issues with no ozone and everything in the weak magnetic down here in Australia. And the other issue is currently over Russia. Upper, the islands above Russia. Up here in the Arctic. But any place you get a split like this between a positive and negative, you end up with a big hole. That's why you get, that's where you get most of the expanded aurora borealis going on. Yeah, the other one ain't working. The other program.
Right. Well, there are these. There were four different kind of futurists that were featured that were featured recently, led by Corey Good, saying that they were catastrophic or possibility of cataclysmic earth changes happening in terms of a physical pole shift and physical level earth changes associated with a pole shift, with a physical pole shift. And it was, Corey Good and 3 of the other leading sort of cosmological futurists. Do you see any of that at that scale?
If you look at this, this is where the pole used to be. This is what we're going back to. And this is the center of what used to be the south magnetic pole.
Mm-hmm.
And this 100-mile wide circle here around the globe is where all the ETs built all their megalithic structures.
All the pyramids and stuff.
The pyramids and of all the different types and all of that, including the stuff on Easter Island. It's all in this circle. But that right there is the center.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going back to. But bear in mind, rather than a 32.5 degree angle tilt, back then it was only like somewhere between 15 and 19, half of what it is now, So we're talking a shorter distance between the magnetic pole and the physical spin pole, which makes for much milder weather.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we're going back to. However, with things being off-centered magnetically, it's going to be a bumpy ride, a wobbly ride.
Right.
Can you expand a little bit on the wobbliness and the stuff, like, people off the East Coast and West Coast coming off or moving into more secure areas? Where would that be? I was looking at stuff too, even.
Well, with the expansion going on, we're talking, crustal plate movements, we're talking tsunamis, things like that, major earthquakes. And this again is the current plate. And what we've got here is a crack that goes right here that's been dormant for a very, very long time. That's going to become active again. Because this whole part right here is twisting clockwise. Whereas this down here is going north. Oh, why doesn't this thing
You're talking
change
about
with
something
me.
and the pictures don't
Yeah,
match.
why doesn't this thing doesn't change when I change the
I don't know.
picture?
I think we have.
I don't know. I have to restart it every
Yeah,
time.
thank you. I know what you're talking, and I'm going
Yeah.
this way. That's not it. That's the
See,
picture I wanted. Thank you.
There's a really old fault right here that's been hasn't been active for a very, very long time. That's what's becoming more active. That's why I can almost pretty much pinpoint where the break is going to be, where the new fault's going to open up. Because this whole part right here is trying to turn clockwise, while this bottom part here is pushing upwards. And you've got the John DeFuca plate pushing under this edge, lifting the western edge up. And this end down here is sinking while it's being forced to turn clockwise. So that whole zone is going to be a mess.
Okay, I'm looking at this article here, which is based on a video that Corey Good, Jordan Sather, and Dr. Michael Sala did.
Mm.
Corey Good, Jordan Sather, and Dr. Michael Sala predicted an Earth planetary pole shift coming out of a solar event, which was like a mini nova. It wasn't like a supernova, but like a micronova. And they found solar material on the dark side of the moon, so that they know that on a cyclical basis, the sun has micronovas. And that micronova can drive a pole shift according to that theory.
It's not micronovas.
I was going to say it's electric.
The sun is electric and it's got a portal in it.
Oh, okay.
The only time we get really severe output from the sun is when because the sun originally had one gate, and we were always careful not to be at the backside 180 out from where the gate is, because every time they use the gate, when it closes up, you get a backflash out the back. It's sort of like water hammer and pipes, where you put that expansion thing to stop it. Every time something comes through the gate and it closes, you get at the 180 mark, you get a backflash out. And they've always been careful to keep Earth out of that. Most of the time Mars gets hit with it. But they've upgraded the sun, and now it has 6 gates in it.
Wow.
So it gets a little more dicey in keeping Earth out of the backflash every time a gate is used.
Right. And so the hypothetical in this video that not hypothetical, they were predicting a solar flash. Corey Good, Jordan Sather, and Dr. Michael Sala were predicting a solar flash, which would lead to be the driver of an Earth planetary pole shift. And that pole shift was of the sort that was predicted in my 1974 book, The Age of Cataclysm. So what I didn't have back in 1974 was that piece. I had
That isn't the issue. You understand, as we go, Sol as a system goes around the center of the Milky Way.
Yeah.
They travel in a sine wave pattern up and below the plate, like that, a regular pattern. Every time we cross the middle, we are in a direct receiver place for pulses from the center of the Milky Way. Mm-hmm. That is where we're at, because we just now transitioned through the middle of the galactic plate, where we're starting to move above, which is in front of the Milky Way in its travel. Therefore, space becomes a lot thicker, a lot denser, and a lot more energetic. And that is what's hitting our electromagnetic shield, in conjunction with the shield getting weaker.
Right. And so
and that's to let the flash through. But that flash is actually for human ascension purposes.
Right. So that flash is driving a dimensional consciousness shift, which you say is ascension. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, is that flash ascending everything, or is it frying part of it and ascending the other part of it?
There's some other issues that that come in conjunction with that. Where I've got the diagram on that. Earth, Sirius, and Procyon.
Mhm.
All three of us form a triad.
Mhm.
Okay, and all three of us have brown dwarfs. I'll bring this graphic up for you. Where is it? Right here. Let me get that shared. Share this one. Okay. This is our sun. That's Sirius. That's Procyon. Procyon's brown dwarf, Sirius brown dwarf, and ours. They all go out around the central black hole and come back. Now, normally our brown dwarf does a pass through,
Mhm.
and it's like a forces a physical reset of the surface of Earth, sort of like a wipe and start over of the classroom. Yeah, Sirius goes out, goes around, Procyon's goes out and goes around, comes back. Same thing. When our brown dwarf came in, rather than doing a regular pass through, again, I caught this on camera. It slammed on the brakes and did a 90-degree turn into a parking orbit, and it's still parked out there. They haven't sent it back on its way again, and that's a microwave source, and also contributing to the heating up of everything, and including the not just Earth, but the melting of the poles on Mars, and the heating of Jupiter and every other planet in the system. So that's also a contributing factor.
Well,
Matter of fact, when it came in, I caught this on a thermal. I'll show you here. When it bashed its way through the Oort cloud surrounding Sol system, that was it right there. And all this red is heated dust from the impact. That's our brown dwarf. I've even got pictures of all this dust. Thankfully, Mars was in the right position. It took the impact of all this crap. So that's still parked out there, heating things up, which is contributing to the speed of the changes. I have another picture here on the that isn't it. I changed the directory. The last pole wobble thing before they basically took the system offline that I have data on was 2007. What's going on lately, they don't want anybody to know.
Well, where are the inquiring minds that would love to know and share?
That's what I mean. The whole tracking, all the equipment that does the tracking is no longer available to the public. They're just doing it local at NASA. So there isn't really any way to get a hold of that data at this point.
So having you said that, there's something that's come up, I know, in the last week or two or something, but people, and again, that's something you and I talked a little bit about yesterday, but they've been putting out false data. And some things I'm looking for some things to discern on and others, but there's a lot of false data that's going on that almost all the channels are picking up. And that's really kind of what I wanted Pattie to look at and address, because the stuff with the pole shift, the magnetic loss of the fields, people are getting really scared. There was stuff even on Marfugal and stuff and other reports. I mean, and this isn't just it. It's Dutch saying it's Mr. Vivi. I mean, there's all the ones that people are following, in this kind of truth media sort of thing. And they are false. So when I can see the shield and everyone's thinking we're going to get a corneal mass ejection or something going to happen,
that's not going to happen,
or the Planet X or the Nibiru, I want her to cut this out right now, because this is what's sending people off there, and they don't discern the same way I do if I'm looking for stuff. And I'd like her to maybe address a little bit of the galactic end.
See,
shut
October
down.
2014 is when they cut the data off. But bear in mind, this started January 1st of 2013. So that's the travel in a little over, not quite 2 years. That's how severe the wobble is. And it's getting wider and wider out. And this is easy to track. I mean, all you got to do is get out your compass and track where the sun and moon come up and set each day.
It's like a sestat.
Yeah.
Back to navigating that way.
So it's you know, that easy to figure out. I'm trying to get my oh, here we go. Stop here. There we go.
And the other thing
Trying to get my screen back.
Radiation is the radiation, the ozone, and the UVC. And again, that's some of the things people are burning immediately. Combine that with some of the 5G, I think that is being played with on and off. I mean, I feel like I'm having mini strokes every day. It's like, you know, it's affecting the entire atmosphere for people and their moods, obviously. The anxiety.
It's not just that, but you got to understand this. You know, human frequency upgrade system is based largely on gamma.
Yeah.
You got to have the ozone down for that to work. Which is why they're doing, you know, some very small fixes upstairs, but not a lot to our ozone.
Can you elaborate on that?
They don't want it fixed. Here, let me do another screen share here.
Who's the they that they don't want it fixed, and who is fixing it?
The non corporeal group that's working with us. As you can see here, since the 6th, there really hasn't been anything coming out of the sun hitting us, because this is us here, yellow.
So obviously our shields are still intact. And even if
they're weaker, but yeah, they're still there. They'll always be there. But when the flip does happen, it gets to a certain point, and then it goes fast, and the magnetic flip, you know, joggles back and forth a bit before it steadies down in the new position. You know. So if I move through this all the way up to now, there hasn't been anything. And what has been coming out before us is long dissipated outward before it ever gets to us.
So that's a totally 180-degree story from what I was looking in the last week. Because I looked at 6 different channels, as you know, and they all said, you know, we're getting this, you know, things are going to hit, da 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 da, and then you went, there's nothing there.
But bear in mind, if you're accessing the public available SOHO, they're deliberately fudging that data on purpose.
I want brought out.
So go to July 3rd.
So to make clear, this is not the public data.
No, this isn't. This is NASA's stuff where I get all my data. That's an older one. Let me get these updated to today's date.
And sometimes, Alfred, what I've seen is they've looped from previous years. So things that have happened years and years ago, they're now playing today. So people are totally confused. They've been like 2-3 years out.
Yeah, they changed the dates on them and everything else.
So that's part of the psyops I've seen, even when looking at it live compared to what they're putting out in the public. When we used to do split screens or side by side.
But you can see here how our magnetic field is weakening and it's dropping lines. And
so can you talk a little bit about the gates? What's happening there at the gate? Because that's where we will see sometimes ET activity as well, Alfred. And
oh, there's a ton of ships going through the gate, but they're all on our side, mostly. Well, case in point, yesterday in the afternoon, they actually tried another fake ET invasion yesterday upstairs. So we had to go up there and whip their butts again. See, now that's one of the enemy ships. And that's not likely to live long. And as you can see, as stuff comes out, it gets chased down. Oh, where is it? Yeah.
Oh, there.
Right there, right here.
Yep.
It gets chewed up. all the smaller ships behind it just eat it. Yeah.
So these are primarily Draco, or do we
Yeah, Draco and their allies.
Draco ships?
Well, this isn't so much an
What's
issue with ETs as it is the corporate groups that have been in league with the ETs for a long time. And most of them are either hybrids or clones or whatnot. They're soulless. So they really don't care what happens to Earth or humans. They want their profit, you know, and that's all that matters. So yeah, there's a lot of, and every time they come in via the Sun Gate, they just get chewed up because we have so much force here in system now. It's pathetic, including battle planets like these, you know, and there, and these are entire planets that are weapons that travel around under their own warp drive. So the enemy hasn't a prayer at this point.
That's greatness. Are you healthy, Alfred?
And this is what I've been trying to, you know, get across to people. The war is over and the Cabal lost. That doesn't mean that battles have stopped. There's a hardcore corporate group that says, we ain't going down, we ain't leaving, you're gonna have to kill us. And that's what we're dealing with now. And any contractors that they call in. Because we've been getting a lot of oddball ships and things coming in that we ain't never seen before. So they're calling on every allied resource they can. Not that it's going to do them any good, but you know. So.
Now, how does this play into, okay, that's the space stuff. How does that play into what we're seeing here now going on, like with the drones and this and that, and in the current affairs, you know?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, like what happened last couple of days. I'm just trying to bring down to
yesterday, this whole thing with the supposed Russian sub that was off our Alaskan coast, and they got in a torpedo fight with U.S. sub and sunk it. Pure bullshit.
So false media, massive false media psyops.
The Cabal is trying to do everything to instigate a World War III scenario. The sub that was on fire and everything, supposedly after getting in a fight with a sub off our coast, was parked at Murmansk in the port where it had the fire, and I got a picture of it. So that was just garbage.
And that's in Russia. Just in case.
In Russia.
Murmansk, that's in our area. It's a bear area. It's in Russia.
And I went up and started tracking the ships and stuff. We do have one of our subs was off the tail end of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
It submerged, went somewhere. So once they go underwater, I can't track them via satellite anymore. But apparently went to investigate because we have a couple up there all the time. One is sitting on top of the water, and the other one was there, but like 4 hours after this whole thing hit the public, it submerged and took off.
So the whole thing was a bogus thing.
Yeah. And the whole thing with Iran, they shot down one of the U.S. Air Force's drones, which was probably being run by the CIA. It's a provoking, you know what I mean? So Putin dropping things and going to meet with his military people about the loss of the crew on the nuclear sub. Yeah, and the whole thing with the rumored thing put out by the Cabal caused Pence to turn around and come back and go into the situation room, and that turned to be bogus.
And the whole thing with the first FLOTUS and everything else, and Melania turning back, everything's all. So this is something.
They didn't. I tracked that plane. It took off and went where she was planned to go.
Right. So this is something, for an example, that was put on Marfugel, and not that it's bad, but there are people coming in from 100-some thousand all over. But this is something that
you have a lot of military out there pouring data into Marfugel. But bear in mind, the Cabal group runs a lot of these pseudo-military groups in the military-industrial complex that are throwing all this data in there.
as well.
So it's the data flow, a lot of it's just pure bullshit. Again, they're trying to prompt a World War III and they ain't getting away with it. We're just not having it.
And this is where I feel you need a regular platform, Patty, to put this stuff and squelch these false flags and false smoke things going up.
Right. Could you, for the people who are perhaps not familiar, just explain what the term marfugal means?
That's another YouTube, a guy who has a YouTube channel that talks to a lot of the military or ex-military people who have, chains of information with their former folks they used to work with while they were in the military. So there's a good data flow. I mean, I've tapped that sort of data flow before, but I only tap it with certain people who I know don't just give information, but actually have verified everything before they give it to me. Because Marfugal's just posting anything that comes in. And it's fear porn. It lowers people's frequency, gets them worried or upset that World War III is going to start again, and then they become better food for the ETs. Need to stop that.
Okay, so
people need to work more on getting their own personal frequency and everything inside than the garbage that's going on around them.
Now, I think what's kind of as you would bring that up is, as we talk about the earth is our flesh, like inside out, outside in, above and below. And part of that is, I think, people getting cleansed out to be able to handle these higher frequencies and raising our vibration, using those things like cleansing and detox and activated charcoal or carbon C60 and using those things like essential oils, doing the steams, doing the colonics, doing the enemas, getting our own stuff out of the way and clearing our minds. Because
there's also that are not just light workers, we're like warriors. We're keeping a lid on things, and we're keeping the bad guys off. So let it go. Those of us who can are handling it. Work on yourselves, people.
Can you talk a little bit about the radiation, Patty? I think that's one of the bigger things in the ozone and facilities again. Why it's important that, an organic hemp farm adobe thing is not going to save anyone's ass anymore.
Between the radiation they're releasing and the UVC getting through the atmosphere, anything you grow outside isn't really safe to eat anymore. It's all contaminated. And I'm not even going to touch on the GMO issue. I mean, just plain radiation fallout on it makes it no longer really safe to eat. It's basically anything that's grown outdoors that isn't grown inside a greenhouse undercover is, you're eating fallout. Radioactively contaminated food stuff. And if it comes from the Pacific, same thing. And there's a plan in the works, TEPCO's planning to just basically empty all those tanks, storing all that stuff into the ocean anyway. Not that it matters. You can't actually do worse than what's already happened. You got 3 cores in the ground there. That all the water they're pouring in is going down through the hole, causing. See, this is the thing that people don't understand. Once you have a meltdown, throwing water on it is the worst thing you can do. You're not cooling anything off. You're actually creating a mirror for neutrons around it, which only causes it to fission even more. And that's why when Chernobyl melted down, they not only did not throw water on it, 3 guys lost their life going underneath to get the water out of there so that the chlorine wouldn't drop into it. It'd do that because that causes it to fission even more.
Right.
Yet what are they doing, in Japan? They're just throwing more water on it. They're deliberately causing it to fission even more.
And putting the water right into it.
That's basic nuclear physics. I mean, come on. I'm gonna bring up another graph here. Again, people think they don't know what happened to the cores or what's inside those reactors and everything. They have equipment to track that, and they did. I mean, this is what we have. They did track it. This is number one's core. This is number two. And number three, actually, the first melt over the top, so it formed like a shotgun barrel. So when it did go, it actually blew way down. This wad from number three, back in June of 2011, it was traveling at 4 kilometers a day downwards. And this is the water table. It goes right out to the ocean. It was actually bubbling up in the harbor, which is why they put that whole thing of clay type stuff down over the floor of the whole harbor, because radioactive elements were actually coming up, because this break here and the way it slants upwards, it was coming right out in the harbor. So, you know, their claim that, you know, they don't know what's going on there. There's three there. There's another one up, another corium up the, you know, one of the reactors way up the north of Japan. And then if you come 60 miles south, where Japan juts out to the east just before getting into Tokyo and everything, there was another one out there. That one lost its core too. And I was tracking this stuff on the seismic monitors out there until Japan cut me out and made it so you got to have a government approved login to get the data, because it's a much different wave pattern when a nuclear core goes critical again under the ground than it is from, you know, an actual earthquake. You can track the patterns. There's a big difference. It's obvious. So they cut that data off because I was telling everybody.
Can you maybe address a little bit about raising back to the frequency? Because we have these earth changes coming in. The earth is expanding. The crust is changing. The plates are moving. People are, some of them are in the wrong places. You know, I don't think in a lot of things because of the, you know, as people think it is a disaster with the flooding and stuff, those are flooding out also Monsanto areas and things that have been totally abused from an earth point of view and Gaia's point
As
of view.
I understand it, it really doesn't matter because we ain't going to be humans. Actual humans aren't going to be left here. These idiots are going to get left with their mess that they had, and everything technological of any type, you know, the hammer is going to be taken away from them. And they're going to be left to deal with their own mess with no slaves.
Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about that 3D? We're moving to like a 3D, and then there's going to be 4D.
A duplicate of Earth at a higher dimension level. But you got to go through 4D. They've already started the 4D training process here. But yeah, you got to go through a healing thing and cleaned out. And humans who are not already light workers and used to dealing with the non-corporeal types and communication-wise, they need to get a lockdown of their brains and their emotions, because they output like beacons that would actually drive a fifth-level person insane. So that's a lot of training that needs to be done. And it's going to start by people being able to hear things like trees and animals and stuff, talk to them. It's going to, a lot of them are going to think they're going insane with this, but it's needful. It needs to be done.
Information coming in. So also then from raising the vibration, the frequency, can you address maybe a little bit of that for us too?
It's on an individual level at the actual frequency of your DNA. So your whole body can transition a level. However, that because of the free will issue, that's, I mean, I've bent the rules, doing stuff to try and get people to move along in that right direction, including putting the data in a scalar wave array and pushing it into everybody's head and giving them massive headaches and things. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's up to them.
Try some black lemonade.
People need to work on their own shit and let those of us who know how deal with the rest of the mess out here, because we're dealing with it fairly well. The war is over. We won. It's just cleanup at this point.
So what can we do to help you? Is there
So,
people want to know? They want to know.
I got somebody trying to actually kick me out of the house here so they can sell it. A family member. Matter of fact, I got to go to court on the 11th and throw a bunch of paperwork and laws and stuff at them and try and shut that down. They already tried an illegal eviction on me by going to the sheriff's office and having them come here, serve eviction thing and all that. But it wasn't legal, so I just ignored it. And the sheriff's, of course, can't come and do anything about it. She actually paid them to do that, even though it wasn't legal or lawful. So now we're going to do it in the court next time on the 11th.
So speaking of legalities and things attacking us, 5G is still part of these earth changes that we're all having to deal with. And I know I've got like the LED and the street lights and everything else. And Alfred and myself and a lot of people have been involved in the 5G education.
That's going to get shut down. I mean, that's already come up in Congress where they pigeonholed them and said, you know, where's the testing saying this is safe? And basically got these folks to say, sorry, no testing was ever done. So there is no data saying that any of it is safe. Matter of fact, there's actually government studies out there from the guy who did it that it's actually a military weapon. That hasn't gotten to you know, been presented to Congress yet, but it will.
Well, I was going to say, everyone keeps saying there's no data, there's no data. I said, yes, since the 1950s, it's been militarized.
We've got the original patent
out there that it's harmful. That it's
We've got the original patent from the guy who designed the stuff, you know, as a military weapon. So, I mean, at this point, they're taking the corporations in and pigeonholing them with questions. They haven't started the public side of it yet. They've done the corporate side of it. However, we've already won court cases, you know, brought forth by, you know, fire chiefs and things like that, because the first place they started installing this stuff was on top of these, you know, public service buildings, and they all got sick and ended up in the hospital and had to be removed. So this case is already won here. It just there's you know, process to go through.
Well, I like I said, I see it coming out here as opposed to being removed right now. In fact, they just put the cover up on the rest of the stuff down in the one in Saskatoon here.
And people need to understand why Trump was pushing for the rollout of 5G, to get it out of the corporate privacy framework so that we could actually question it and demand the actual data pertaining to it, get it into the actual studies group to test it for you know, harmful effects and all that. As long as it stayed a corporate technical secret,
exclusive,
you couldn't even touch it. So you have to drag this stuff out in the public forum to expose it, because otherwise it's a corporate secret and you're not allowed the information. So, I mean, there's ways and means about this. So, I mean, what Trump, you know, pushing the 5G, seeming to push the 5G agenda was for a very good reason, to get it out there in the public eye so we could shred it legally. So people need to stop bad-mouthing Trump. He's at least 5 or 6 steps ahead of these monkeys.
He's on a
when he does things for a good reason. Even the stuff he did to the tribe, I had words with him over that. I understood his tactical reason, even though I didn't like what he was doing.
All part of that stuff to do with the land, the pipeline, and
the pipeline.
And this is the whole thing that's got to be stopped up here, because we're seeing so much fracking. And I know,
and now it blew up.
It just got taken out.
It blew up. It broke and blew up.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know,
that's exactly what we said was going to happen.
Well, you know, and some of this is affecting, a lot of people think it's always out on the coast, and in the middle, Saskatoon here in the middle of the prairies, right? We had a slight little shake the other day, and actually the fluids were moving. So there were little tremors here, which of course we've got synchrotrons underneath here, which are already leaking, and we've got a nuclear facility at Saskatoon as well. So, I mean, we had some sort of a mini little quake, and of course, I don't know if you know, Alfred, but a lot of times we've had earthquakes, Patty and I have looked at here, you know, just 2s and 3s, and you go onto the data, and within 2-3 hours, they're scrubbed.
Yeah.
Even though we felt it, even though we saw it, even though we've got tunnels underneath here, but something was going on the other day.
I do have access to graphs that don't get scrubbed, so
Yeah.
I do have records of it. Well, to give you an idea, the whole pipeline thing, Trump's idea on that was to prove the fact that the steel that the pipelines are made of, which was coming from China, was garbage. And that whole situation was turned to get the U.S. steel mills back up and productive,
Yeah.
cut off imports from China, and get America back on a better, engineering and financial footing, and get a lot of companies who have gone overseas for cheaper labor back here, because we were actually falling behind on a technological standpoint as far as the public technology was concerned, not as far as the real technology is concerned, though. But without the facilities to even bring forth the real technology here, I mean, our infrastructure was gone. It had gone overseas. And that's a major problem with rolling out the real technology. We don't have the facilities here to make any of it unless it's down in the dumps, and we've been taking those out. So that's a bit of a problem.
That's part of the flooding as well going on with the shutting down of the deep underground military bases, i.e. dams, and the human trafficking and the
yeah, it's all tied in with taking all of that down. But I mean, all these, soulless individuals, hybrids or just clones, they're your, your pedophiles and whatnot. And they're also the ones that are trashing this planet and dumping toxic stuff everywhere. I mean, look at these strip mines. You know, the large percentage of the material that comes out of there doesn't stay on Earth. Think about all the material that's been pulled out of there. It's not here on Earth. It's been used to build ships out there.
Well, the ET ships, the golds and everything else, the mining they've been doing up here, the uranium, the whole potash thing underneath my feet. Like, I mean, there's tunnels all over. I've got potash mines everywhere. For what they're stripping. So we know it.
And you got jump portals and whatnot to Mars. There's multiple cities on Mars, and that's not just a United States thing. That's a global thing. Every major nation on the planet Earth is involved with that. There's entire cities out there. I mean, I got camera views of it. So this whole mission to Mars thing that NASA's pulling and Elon Musk, that's all cabal. It's misdirection. Matter of fact, they're starting to play with warp drive technology at NASA now, even though the entire beginning of the Apollo launches was to build the first warp drive ship up in orbit. So now they've got a design which coincidentally exactly matches the ones they already built, because now they're going to have to publicly do it, because if people see the ships they already built before they actually build one publicly, they're in deep shit.
Which they've been doing since the 50s.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the whole moon landing was a farce. It's not that we didn't actually send some capsules up there and land them on while they were lowered down to the moon. But we won't even get into all the garbage with that. But bear in mind, we landed our first magnetically driven human-staffed craft on Mars in 1947. So put the rest of the pieces together, folks. How much is real? How much was just, Hollywood? For your edification.
So where is a great place to get actual data? I know you're putting stuff out at on your Facebook group at Pattie's Open Data Group
and some of the stuff on the older stuff on Project Ascension. Plus, I've been doing here and there odd videos when I get a chance, Zoom room, stuff like this, more on a specific topic. The girl that was doing that with me, she's been on vacation out of the country, so she's back. She sent me a notice, so she wants to do another thing. But I mean, I've been trying to, rather than covering now no longer relevant back data, I'm trying to do things moving forward and what people need to do to get themselves move forward, especially with the Nibiru Countdown group. I mean, these people don't understand that if you put enough energy into things, you can manifest it. And they're basically trying to manifest another Nibiru, even though, we froze a thing in orbit of Earth and killed the red plasma entity that was running it and then towed it out of the system. They're still adamant that it's going to come. And this is a discussion we've got in with the non-corporeals upstairs. When the event goes down and we get pulled off here, those folks are going to get their own planet Earth, and because they're pushing so hard and putting so much energy behind the whole destruction by Nibiru thing, that's what they're going to get. And they don't seem to get that.
So we should be dancing like everyone's looking right now, as we just want to raise up. I mean, this is
then they'll get recycled, and after they all die, and you're going to get what you're pushing for. I mean, I understand they've put 10, 20 years into researching all this, and historically when it came and what it did and everything else. They've got so much invested in it that they can't let it go. Even when we're showing proof that we already dealt with it and it's no longer an issue.
Okay,
they can't let it go.
Okay, so I have a question. As I went through this attack, on May 17th, or I think it's been going on a long time, but anyway, something that was really visible again. I just had a few more of my, genius
you went in camp. You went on vacation on top of a cabal dome. I mean, come on, Karen.
That was after. It happened before. It here.
Well, I'm not talking about the Dracos one. I mean the second one.
Well, you gotta.
The Draco one they came to you, but you went to them this time.
Yeah, well. But no, I mean, it happened. The markings happened here, which led me to, I had a couple other clients and therapists of mine that woke up with similar type of marks in the last 2 weeks as well. So I wanted to bring that back up because I mean,
threats and intimidation by all of these groups. The last, the remaining group, they're not under. Case in point, anything the Dracos do at this point, the leader of the Dracos will kill them if they catch them, because they're not even following their own leaders at this point. Because their leaders know we'll just kill them, all of them, if they don't.
Okay, so are you saying now that
get on board with the program?
So now you're saying the Dracos are our allies? What am I hearing now? So
we have them under our thumb for the most part, the leaders of them anyway, to stand down. But I mean, it's like the cabal members. There's a bunch of them that just are not listening, and desperation. So yeah, the war's over. That doesn't mean that all the battling has stopped. So, but we're taking care of that.
No, one of the things I do have to say in here, whatever it is my immune system is kicked in higher, because I mean, this was gone in a couple of weeks, not a couple of months. So, and it was very helpful for people, even when I got the thermal.
That's the energy that's coming in. That's going on with everybody. Yeah.
And one of the things I found that's still really helpful is to do biofeedback to keep re-energizing or remagnetizing the field.
Does that, but I mean,
and
I hate to say this, but the biofeedback stuff is more of a placebo, not for their conscious mind, but to get their conscious mind through that, to start reprogramming the hindbrain to do it for themselves. But actually,
well, that's what biofeedback is.
People can do this without any of that, their own selves.
But this is a great way to show some of the pictures and minerals and stuff.
Yeah, it's a training tool.
Well, it's not only a training tool, but I mean, it actually is like doing energetic, your minerals, your vitamins, whatever. So it has applications to that too. The other thing too is
it's not as good as Skizio. I'm sorry. And I know the problem with getting the Skio software activated and all that, how they, the cabal fixed to shut that down by hijacking the person who does the activation codes.
The Indigo and the E-Doctor, Dr. Bill Nelson does, right?
That is the scalar wave and can actually pull for more energy to make things. Whereas, again, with the genius, it's robbing from Peter to paper. You got to actually break down something to make other things. It's a good balancing thing.
Well, it's one thing that I've got one here, but I mean, the other thing too is most people don't have 30, 40 grand sitting there to invest in this. And this is not the way we should be going anyway.
This is something you need to correct too, because this is what I'm getting as feedback on the Genius, that she's up the ante and that it's costing like $1,200 a month now.
That's not true. That is not true at all.
That's what is getting back to people supposedly from her. And I said, no, that can't be right.
No, well, that's just false. I mean, we all know that. So, I mean, that shouldn't even be.
Again, that's what I mean. There's all kinds of false information dropping in there. I just want to make you aware of that's some of the stuff I've got, the feedback I've got coming back, that she's now charging that much every month. I said, no.
No, there's no such thing. And people can go to Genius Biofeedback. That's quite, I mean, it's out there for free for trials. So, I mean, $1,200, that's insanity. So there's no such thing like that. There's not even a program that's even monthly like that. In fact, the only one I know of is people wanted to get stuff. They can get it for, I think it's $97. If they're not for under 1,000, you can get the software permanently to run off your systems, as you know. So, I mean, that's just bold. And it shouldn't even be brought up because that's just blatant perjury. But the other thing too, what I wanted to get into, I found that's been really helpful as well, is been doing a lot of the juicing. And for people that aren't aware of carbon C60 or using activated charcoal, this has been amazing as a grounding tool and also for chelating out heavy metals and toxins and just to keep people normal. So this is not wine, by the way. That's something we call black lemonade. Very, very helpful. If people aren't going to invest in a juicer, they can get like, 4 cups of water.
Well, you know me, I got my Eden's garden. I make my slushies, the powdered mix. But.
And, the other thing too, I really got to do is the shotgun stuff like this, and actually chocolate. I do have to thank actually David Wolf and Steve Adler directly, because when this happened, they sent this to me. I got a sample of everything. So, I mean, that cacao and chocolate mixture is really helpful for raising also vibration, because it's medical. These ones are all with, actually, I don't know if you know, but like from maca to Amazonian herbs, chocolate's the delivery system. So I really have to put a thank you to them, because after that happened, they were putting things out on 5G, like David Wolf at the Best Day Over and stuff. They're putting things out. They're educating people in their own way. And like they said, there's so much false media, moving on to Telegram or moving on to a different venue. And I just wanted to get a lot of this clarified off.
And everybody bitches because I smoke, but bear in mind, I make my own cigarettes. The tobacco is grown indoors in a greenhouse with no radioactive content. The Cabal Atomic Energy Commission paid the tobacco industry to take the hit on that. Granted, once they started playing with nuclear weapons and the fallout, tobacco is one of those things that bioaccumulates the radioactive content into the leaves, and then you smoke it. That's why it started causing cancer, because prior to that, tobacco did not cause cancer. That's why all your tribes have the peace pipe and all of that, because it never used to contain radioactive content like it does now. That's why I won't buy any of the store made stuff, because that stuff is just toxic. And depending on where that tobacco is grown out in the open, decides what type of radioactive content you're putting into your lungs. Because the radioactive content is less than 5 microns, it goes right into your bloodstream, and depending on the type, decides on where it builds up in your body. Strontium goes to your bones, plutonium goes to your reproductive organs, and such. So bear that in mind.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe relocation? Like, one of the things I've been busy you know, for the last 2 weeks is I got this little 16-foot 1969, almost as old as I am, camper. You can see
Okay.
all the paint in my hair, but
Everybody's, you know,
getting
worried
things to the
about
computer to
getting killed and, you know, horrific stuff.
I'm gonna go
People,
like,
folks, you don't die, okay? Your soul is immortal. Whether you stay in this little vehicle you're driving around in, why do you really want to at this point? Why not just graduate?
okay, so let's talk about graduation. Can you like give us something like Alfred and I would like something to look forward to? Talk to us about graduation.
As I understand it, you'll be going to one of the well, we got battle planets up there. We also have entire planets that are nothing like but giant hospitals to
Right.
get you healed up and cleaned out and start, you know, training you mentally and to your abilities and whatnot. We're sort of like in between 3 and 4 now. We're not fully into 4, so limit to what they can do down here as far as training you up. The primary thing is going to be mental, so that when you do go to the level 4 hospital, that you're not, you know, over mentally empowering the people there to help you. And then at 5D, it's not perfect. I know there's some facilities built by the Palladians that are somewhat similar to my designs for the enclaves, which is what I intended to build here to get people safe from, you know, the current weather warfare that's going on. I don't know if it's even going to be necessary at this point.
That's what I was thinking.
May just build them on 5, you know, because my designs are better than what the Palladians built up there, because I've seen their stuff. And this is not at all rigged for any kind of catastrophic event. It's not ready for any of it. So that's where mine, you know, is a little bit better, a little bit safer, because shit happens. I mean, look what's happened over the eons here, not just in the Milky Way, but the Dracos and Andromeda and everywhere else. Shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we have higher dimensional beings who are being reined in at this point, who are not good people. So frequency level means nothing as far as who's good and who's bad, because we got bad upper level Palladians as well as the good ones. So
now, you mentioned, I just want to go back to this a little bit. This is like a, you know,
the Christos group that caused all the killing and everything here, they were level 13 through 15. I mean, seriously. And they were part of the ones that were harvesting, you know, souls for Quanta. So yeah, frequency level of achievement means nothing as far as the good and evil factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be done on a not just a race, but a species by species level. There are 9 races of Palladians, and only 2 of them are on the side of white and light. So bear that in mind. Everybody just, you know, uses Palladians as a generic term. Well, there's 9 different species, and only 2 of them are good.
Well, we know that
And so, there's a number of bad ones involved here.
Yeah, we've had death threats by the Palladians, by Mount Shasta. So
the group that came and landed in Inner Earth, the what was it, level 9 or was it 12? I think it was the 12th level ones. Basically, they wanted to do the whole turnover and take over and become the new slave owners of humanity.
The new Grand Poobah.
That's the group that's, you know, hooked to the Blue Sphere Lines.
You checking people?
They're the one that are holding on their ship the replacement Jesus return. And I told them if they put him down here, I'll soul kill him, because we're not allowing that whole mess again ever. But bear in mind, the blue avians and all of that, that's part of the group that originally, way back over in the Dracos galaxy, not the Draco system in Milky Way, but the Draco galaxy, they're the ones originally that conceived and designed and set loose the Draco to begin with. So keep that in mind when everybody says, Corey Good says, the blue agents are the good guys and all this and that. No, they're not.
So what can we do in our individual areas? I mean, like one of the things I've looked at is there's a place we have in Saskatoon that, they've just offered, a couple of rooms for us to come in and start educating and dealing with people. So we could go in and volunteer and do stuff like that.
Okay, here's the thing. And I try to put this out to everybody who calls me and I tutor individually.
Right.
I can teach you everything that happened from the start of time forward, okay? And where you sit in it. Knowing all that means on your graduation.
Right.
You got to do the work, people, yourself.
However,
having all the knowledge in the world, but not actually internalizing it and doing the work on your own self personally isn't going to get you anywhere unless you do. So going to classes and things, that's like step 1 of 4. You can, do all the step 1 you want. That ain't going to get you to 4 unless you do the work internally yourself.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit, what do you mean by internal work? Let's just start this at basics. If we got people here, we're helping.
Mental and spiritual development.
To put some teeth into.
And also the final step of that is using your imagination to basically attempt to manifest what you want your existence to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that contributes to the whole of humanity on the planet Earth, because where you end up, where the whole thing ends up is a just gestalt of all of them, because everybody's linked. So basically, everybody that pushes for that positive outcome,
mm-hmm.
it's the commonalities of everybody's, which is where things are going to go. And the folks upstairs can't help with that. That's a free will issue, and it has to be done by humans. They can't do this for you. There's a lot of things upstairs they can't do for you. It's like a lot of the times when we get in battles with these other ETs or want things changed here, until we initiate it and we push for it, they can't jump in and help either until we initiate it. And that's what it comes down to. Our free will has to initiate the changes for them to help. So start doing it, people. That's what we do. That's how light warriors work. You want to start imagining what you want. And the folks like Nebu Countdown Group who are pushing for a negative outcome, that's what that group's going to end up with. So good luck with that. Because you ain't going where I'm going. Or where any of the light worker or light warrior types are going.
Do you define where we're going, or where you feel that you're going, or you want to go, or you've been before? Because you said you've been to this planet back before.
I've been up to level 5. It ain't it ain't perfect, but you don't have the garbage like you have down here. And one of the major issues with going to level 5, which is a major trauma issue with most of humanity, which is a problem, you're going to have to deal with other beings that don't look anything like you. Some of them can look kind of horrific, but approach other beings as if they were you, despite what they look like. And that's something most of humanity has a real problem with. That's cabal programming, but
we deal with it here, let alone what are we going to see out in the Star Wars thing.
So bear in mind, currently there's humans,
mm-hmm.
and there's 5 other hybrids currently here on Earth. This is stuff that's been done over
succession of time.
Yeah, over millennia.
Yeah,
you got to let go of the hatred, folks. Are they human? No, they're hybrids. Do they have souls? Yeah. They're going to be going too. So this whole, hatred towards anything that's even a little different or not completely human or another species, you gotta let that shit go. That's all cabal programming. Skin color, the way they look, that's all contrived. That's a part of the divide and conquer, because if humanity can't get together as a gestalt whole on the plan, then that's how they keep things the status quo. If we can't get together on anything, you can't accomplish anything. We're all part of the whole. All of us with souls are all part of the whole, no matter what we look like. Get over it. We, the tribes, have never had an issue with way other people look or what their orientation is or any of that. People need to let that go. And just so you know, originally human was one sex, and it was both. But when the split went down and Gaia did some corrective, there's three. There's male, female, and both. Get over it. A lot of the other transgender issue, that's because a soul mismatch at the frequency level of DNA. A lot of that was done deliberately to cause a reduction in population. A lot of it's done after the fact now. The cabal have treatments to make people think they are, and some of it's normal and natural, the transgendered group, some of it's forced on it. So they're basically painting it with a brush that it's all bad. No, people need to just let it go. And they're compounding that by having non-transgendered people, but cross-dressers do things in schools with children, and that's just, that's cabal propaganda to basically irritate the crap out of the Christians and cause more division. It's staged. Just like currently the states that, you know, they have a satanic mass before the opening of the state government. Again, that's staged. That's provoking divisions deliberately, because that's part of their agenda. Keep everybody divided. See it for what it is, folks, and then let it go. That's all I can recommend, because people can't get in the right headspace and thereby the right frequency to ascend with all of that stuff in the mix. You can't do it.
Okay, this stuff about people to, so is there really a necessity to prep in your estimation? And like, everyone's talking like prepping this and
At this point, folks, if you're in an area that's going bad, why not graduate early? That's the way I look at it. But most people don't look at death like that, because they think they're dead. But no, if anybody, you got to understand, if you watch the movie Avatar, you're driving an avatar body. It's not really you. So if you can grasp life at that level, what actually happens to the body you're currently wearing is pretty irrelevant. You know, dropping that body means you graduate early. The only one thing I will say is if you suicide, that's an automatic recycle. That means up here isn't straight, and you're going to immediately get dumped into another body and back into the mess until it's all over. So don't do that. Even though we removed all the automatic cabal-led recycle stuff, so you can graduate and go home, that one issue means you have to come back. There's even people that are so traumatic who die naturally and been through so much trauma that they've actually come back, have to be put back in a womb for a while just to resort them back out. They may not actually eventually be born. They'll be, you know, aborted or still deaths or things like that. But that's because they were so mentally screwed up that they had to be put in that situation to heal before they could go upstairs. So there's a lot of reasons for a lot of things that happen that are taken advantage of to heal people, which to humans currently here on the planet seems awful, especially for the parent that lost their child in the womb. Sometimes it's needful to heal the soul of that individual. So take it for what it is. This is a classroom. Most people who are not light workers or light warriors down here for a specific purpose to bring an end to the worst of what was going on down here. You're down here because you agreed to come down here and learn a lesson. Although this classroom has been so screwed up for so long, it's pathetic. And that's what this whole reset is about, getting rid of all the negative controlling interests.
Well, that's my incentive to finish painting and go to the lake. Which looks a lot better than when I got it. Okay, so where would you like to see us all go with this? You know, I would myself like to see some sort of a more regular platform or something.
When
You know,
enough people
like
get together
coming out.
and picture things, things change instantly because we have just as much control over the whole matrix assemblage
Exactly.
than as they do. In fact, they have no imagination at all. We do. So we are at an advantage. Let's get busy and imagine a better situation, because that's how you get there. In a positive light, stop the wanting to destroy everything. That's why upstairs basically told me to stand down and only do what absolutely has to be done and stop killing entire species. It's not a positive. I mean, what I did had to be done, but it's not a good object lesson for the basic humanity to be seeing going on. It's had to be done to clean up, but they don't want humanity doing that.
Well, isn't there such a thing though as transparency though too? Because a lot of stuff that does happen. I mean, like you know, you were talking about
A
stuff.
lot of that's coming out now, and as of the 4th and 5th, people are going to see a lot more stuff being exposed.
Well, which has to, that disclosure and transparency has to come through, because a lot of it, like, I mean, these things crashed, and yet we know that, you know, the crews are going to clean it up, or things that have happened here in Saskatoon, all of a sudden, well, they dispatched a cleanup crew, and then when I went there, I couldn't see anything, you know, or whatever. So, I mean, which.
Well,
again,
I mean, there's a back and forth thing going on, like that California city that the wildfires went through and destroyed all the houses, but left most of the trees. That was done by beam weapons. And that whole community was primarily ETs. And they had tunnels connecting the houses and escape ways out of. So most of them didn't die in that. But the reason why the cabal wanted to take that out, those folks were willing to come forward publicly as extraterrestrials under Trump and out themselves and start the whole process of getting humanity used to other races and species from all over Earth. And that's why the cabal just stomped all over that and tried to kill them all off before that could become a public spectacle. There's going to be one sooner or later, probably sooner.
Okay, there was a thing that came out with Laura Eisenhower, Agent Pixie, and Jeffrey the other day, Dougherty, that used to be at Decoders of Truth. That was with Jake Campbell, but he's since split. Now, part of that too, when I look at some of those things that go back to the Grenada Treaty and stuff, which were never authorized by, obviously, Clan.
Okay, Karen, and again, I'm going to jump all over you for this. Is that true? Was her father part of the cabal and setting this whole thing up? Yes. Is she guilty of that? No. And that's concentrating on the negative, and it's lowering your own energy and not moving forward in a positive direction. That's being spiteful and chasing history and doing vengeful shit for shit that happened in the past. You have to stop that, because that's not moving forward. That's moving backwards.
Well, no, that's got nothing to do. I'm just saying that was the Granada Treaty, and that people need to know that they're ETs, and that, like, when you talked about the Alpha Centaurians that you were talking about in Paradise, that there were actually treaties. That's what I'm trying to get. People don't realize that things were done with it, that were unlawful, but I'm just saying these were there. And there were agreements.
It's already come out that every president, except for Trump and JFK, who sat in the White House as president, were all members of the Dracos Queen Elizabeth lineage, okay? And they made deals and agreements and everything with other races, that whole group of them, including a large portion of the corporate groups, which has become the military-industrial complex, made deals, including selling humans, live humans and humans as dead humans as food off-world. There's all kinds of really nasty stuff that's gone down. Those are the folks we're taking out and taking down, and that's it's pretty soon going to start, becoming more and more public. I told them they needed to actually do this, even though, in a manner of speaking, it's counterproductive. The public needs it to move forward. They can't drop this whole matter. They need the public prosecutions and see justice dealt out in order to move forward. And I told that to them upstairs, and they didn't like that, because that's not a forward movement. That's actually a backwards movement, etherically. I told them it ain't going to happen. And you're actually losing ground at this point and playing kick the can and delaying all of this longer and longer. You're losing energetically, you're losing ground. And you need to start doing something to get them past this. And without some sort of public forum, this sort of thing going down and seeing justice dealt out, people ain't moving forward. And that's the problem. And that's just causing ever more of a delay in the, in the actual graduation event.
Okay, and that lends me, not at all, but Alfred, you were talking about doing ordinances or something, or drafting a moratorium or a health thing, for the 5G and stuff like that. Does that fall into the same thing? Like, what do you guys feel?
Most of the countries have already banned 5G. It's already gone down in England, a permanent ban against 5G. In certain states in the United States, that's already gone down because of the effect on the personnel where they first tried to actually activate this stuff. It's been brought up in Congress. It's going to be shut down. Any further court cases will only help speed things up in that direction. But that's a single twig on the bonfire. The aerial, dumping is going on again. They're still doing the weather warfare, and they've evacuated entire families that are flying those planes to places like Ascension Island, or so they're not where we can get at them and teach them. And they've lied to them. I told them what they're doing is creating a thing that's stopping global warming, and it's just garbage. But that's what the Air Force pilots that are flying those planes think, because that's what they've been taught. There's a lot of deception going on, which people scoffed when Trump said, starting a space force. And all that really is taking in all the hardware that the Solar Warden Group had. I mean, it already exists, already has the people, and the staff, and everything.
We keep on getting a date like for the Ascension portal around 2005. I mean, sorry, 2025. Is that a date?
Ain't going that long.
Okay, could you talk more about that?
And here's what I was told from upstairs. Any date I care to name, they'll be sure it ain't that date.
Change it.
You can't give that kind of information out publicly because then the cabal will have a date to work for to screw it up. That's why. That's already been tried because we already tried this once with a name date, and that's what happened. So we discuss it when we're up there, and when we're down here, memory of that discussion ain't in our heads anymore. We don't even have it. Nor will we be allowed to have it, because if we have it, the cabal has groups that can pluck it from our heads. So that's operational security. The July 4th, July 5th thing, people don't understand some critical facts like Brexit. The reason why Trump went over there and forced the whole issue is because the United States was part of the European Union. That's why Brexit had to happen, to get us free from it, and that's part of what's going on the the next few days. Humanity is no longer part of the European Union or part of the corporate structure at all. It's the return of the Republic. That's what the major celebration is about, legally.
And all the tanks going there too. Yeah, they're doing a wee exit.
Well, no, the tanks and things, you got to understand, just like the invisible ET craft that are parked over the White House. Right. The cabal is going to try and stomp on this, guaranteed. All we're doing is prepping for it. There's going to be a confrontation come the 4th. If not on the 4th, it'll be on the 5th, because they don't like this at all. That's the final cutting of any control that they have over anything. That's why most of the DNC are all, getting drunk and stuff lately, because they've lost all hope in their whole control matrix. They know they're all going down. And most of them are going to go to prison, or they'll have to suicide to get away from it, but they know it. So things are going to come to a bit of a head, and there's going to be a confrontation, and Trump's just, being prepared.
So basically, after everything, just to summarize things, I'm looking at our biggest thing right now is just for people to stay healthy, raise their vibration. We're dealing with a radiation problem that's off the charts. And
you get your frequency high enough, get moved enough up into level 4, it ain't going to matter to you.
That's what's going to affect you. Above it. Even when you think of radiation, cesium, plutonium and stuff, that's thyroid, 5th chakra. So having all the stuff in the monatomics and doing what we're doing is keeping it up high enough.
This is another discussion we have when I'm not down here in my body, but upstairs. It's very simple. Within 2 weeks, every bit of damage that's been done to Earth can be undone pretty easily, including the nuclear shit. And then there's a discussion on the human side. Don't want to leave these idiots who created this mess behind to deal with the mess they created and take away all the technology. Our viewpoint on that is not taking in the best light upstairs, because that's not being a positive light being standpoint of view of what these people deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, that's why the delay's been going on. They're trying to set things up to improve the situation of those who are not graduating. I don't think they deserve it personally, but that's me. But that's what's going on. On the other hand, I look at things from much further back, and it's not just an Earth issue. There's a multitude of races and planets and galaxies involved in this, which I've been more heavily involved in things off Earth than on Earth until recently, which is why they've been telling me to stand down. And they're going to try and look at this from the bigger perspective and try and give some level of decency and treatment to these folks who did bad, even though they did bad, and they're not going to graduate.
So that the title of this panel really, that started on Earth Changes, should be really Ascension.
Ascension, and we're going to actually get moved to a duplicate. It's impossible to get all the negatives off Earth because people look at this as the surface of Earth. You got to understand there's more than 14 other races living at other levels underground inside Earth. So in order to clean all the negatives off, it's almost an impossible scenario to do it. It's easier just to create another Earth, duplicate a clean one, and move all the good folks off and leave all these bad guys to themselves.
Okay.
All the Jinn, who basically escaped Eden, you know, Gaia's mother's planet, through the portals and came here, thinking this planet was for them when it was originally brought here, and it wasn't, and it caused all kinds of havoc. They've already, you know, they created a whole nother galaxy, parked it right beside the Milky Way. This went through the White House, by the way. They immediately found within like 6 hours more than 6 habitable Earth-type planets that they wanted to just run and grab. It's like, no. And all the Jinn were pulled off, and they were given one planet. And this is the way it's going. You know, the cherry picking of groups off of Earth has already begun. So it's an ongoing process. It's already begun. But when any particular group gets pulled and given their own planet and set aside, none of that's going to be talked about ahead of time. Because then you'll have the cabal grabbing hostages of specific types and things like that, you know, just to screw with things. So you know, we can't talk about it. We know what's going on and an idea of it, but we're not talking. And the actual dates, although we had them when we were upstairs having these conversations, they're not in our heads now, so don't even bother trying to pluck them. We volunteered to have that information removed before we came down here and woke back up. So good luck with that.
Remind what then.
We know everything. We're really good about operational security these days. So we don't talk about it on Skype or on Zoom or anywhere else. We'll give you an idea, but we ain't giving you dates. Forget it. There isn't anybody on Earth with the dates in their heads for you to pull, so give it up. Anybody that does give a date for any of this is talking out their ass. And folks like Corey Good and all of that group, bear in mind, they got chips. They're under the control of the cabal, and the information they leaked out was you know, based on the cabal's delayed agenda, you know, release of information agenda, which is a moot point at this point because they lost the war already. They ain't getting what they want. Ever.
So Alfred and I should be partying, and so should everyone in the audience.
Yep. They lost the war. They keep trying things like they gathered together the scraps of allied groups of fighters and stuff up in orbit yesterday, and that's the main reason why they returned to the White House. They tried to stage another fake invasion from orbit yesterday. Didn't work. We chewed them all up. And the funny thing is, the largest group of fighters, yeah, fighter craft, the orbital type fighter craft we got with the pilots in them, they're actually cabal forces that work for us when we ask them to. So the cabal's losing control over their own group of military industrial complex folks, and they're doing work for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, few of them are playing.
Because the corporate group has the most advanced stuff, the most advanced intergalactic going ships and fighters and everything else. So that's what we really want to get on our Space Force in the end. We're basically taking it all away from them because the corporate group exploited humanity to make all that stuff. And it's become more advanced than the races out there that they're dealing with, to the point where, you know, races that were more advanced, way more advanced than humanity, are now buying our stuff built by humans because it's more advanced than what they got. Because we're the creative monkeys. And we can take stuff from multiple different species, compile it together, make something really, really super good that outstrips anything they got out there. And then they manufacture it on Mars and sell it to them using materials from here.
Well, there's so much to protect.
Yep. I mean, I can show you a political map of Mars just to give you folks an idea, because people don't understand this level of fraud that's been going on, for decades. My Mars
It's like they
stuff.
have countries that got territorial maps up there.
Yeah,
And-
just
and
like here on Earth, they've divided it up between all the different groups from Earth. That's not to say they're the only ones up there, because there's like 9 other races of ET up there, and you don't go up there and try and pick out a bit of real estate without a real good military force, because yeah, it's routine. It's pretty dog eat dog up there. Here's a political map of Mars.
Everyone's got a cut of the pie up there, huh?
Yep. Yep. It's Europe. India's up there, Turkey, Arabia, Kazakhstan. This is like the cabal's main capital here on Earth, by the way. Same thing, Kazakhstan, where they got a duplicate of the White House and everything else. Then you got the Russians over here. I mean, yeah. But understand, they're constantly fighting against extraterrestrials up there. And we have fighter craft, we have soldier groups, and I mean, I've got pictures from the fighting groups underground up there, and the stealth combat suits that are actually can go invisible. This picture here shows one that's slightly defective, which is why the bottom half of this girl, you can't see, it's invisible, you can see right through it. Her suit got messed up. This is in the caves of Mars. So are we up there? Oh yeah, been up there for a long time. I got some other ones of like tank type stuff up there in the caves, and
So this ties into Captain K, like Randy Kramer and all that stuff.
yeah, I mean, what the some of the stuff that they said is true, but bear in mind they ain't telling the whole truth. This is like a tank type vehicle here with our folks standing on top, and there's ETs coming out from here that they ended up in a firefight with. That kind of stuff. I mean, everybody knows like the Voyager lander, right, on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we've got I've got pictures of them actually going out to service that thing. Not only do I have it from the standpoint of them walking on the surface of Mars, I've got it from the standpoint of the NASA security cams of them in NASA Space Center monitoring the operation. That's how deep the fraud goes. NASA knows about all this, and they lie on a regular basis. It's just like, I'll show you this. This is, here's some thing, about the Apollo launches. This cracks me up. Here's the program that they used at NASA to pick out the parts of the Apollo to build this, the first warp drive ship. And this is what they recently put out, their new design of the first warp drive ship. Well, this is already, built a long time ago. It was called the Admiral Horton.
Mm-hmm. That is all.
Let's see if I can actually get this to share more than just one single. How do you do this to do the whole desktop? Did they remove that? Where is it? Oh, here's the inside the cockpit of the Admiral Horton. So I'm not just saying it exists and talking out my ass. Here's the picture from inside the cockpit. I mean, I've got the thing from the presentation. When this is the design that the eggheads gave to NASA to build. Of course, what they built didn't actually look anything like this, or not much like it. And they've This is the Admiral Horton here. Are you seeing this? Is it actually changing
Yes.
the pictures as I do it? Okay.
Just slowly.
Yeah. That's the Admiral. That's the Admiral Horton.
It's gray right now. We could see when you had everything behind here, but now it's gray.
I'll redo it. See?
There.
And that's why they've got that new 3D presentation, which is this, of what they want to build. And it's basically a duplicate of what they already have, a little spiffied up. And they have to build it because if they don't, they see what's out there now without them having put together this thing, they're going to know that we already have it. So now they're planning to cover your butt move.
So
Heck, I mean, the moon bases. How many people saw the TV program Space 1999?
mm-hmm.
The Eagles, okay? Those are real. I mean, I got stuff from the scrapyard. There's 28 of them still in service. This is out in Arizona, off Route 66, the scrapyard.
So I'm just looking here, and our panel is starting to come up to the magic 2-hour mark when we traditionally go over to a part 3 and reschedule that. But no, wait.
Here, you see this?
Yeah.
What Corey Good talked about, the flimsy computer interface. This one guy, this is back pre-70s. And here's this guy holding one of them. So that much, I mean, the stuff that Corey Good and that group put out, a lot of it is true, but there's a lot of fake stuff in with it too.
Alfred, you were saying? Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so basically what you're saying is that the narrative that we're hearing in the mainstream media, or even that we're hearing in the truth movement, is by and large false, because it's basically fear oriented. And the narrative that you've put out today, Pattie, is very positive.
Yeah.
You're saying stand down from the fear porn and sort of look at the ascension process and focus on that.
The key issue is what they've been putting out has been basically trying to paint the cabal group as the good guys. That is the slant that's been put on it. And beyond that, they intimately throw stuff out that is nothing but fear porn to keep you as food. I mean, there really isn't anything when you understand who and what you really are to be fearful of at this point.
Well, the presentation that we've been seeing today, which I really is sort of transpersonal. I mean, we've gotten beyond people into sort of the process of ascension.
It's like the disorganized hubbub that goes, on prior or moving up to a graduation ceremony at high school, and parents coming in, and the disorganized chaos that goes before a graduation. That's pretty much what we got going on here.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that in the same way that at the end of the last part, we prepared for an Earth Changes program, which has morphed into an Ascension program.
Yeah.
How about, I'd like to propose an Ascension panel and see where that morphs. Are you all game? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, I'm game for that. I mean, Earth Changes are going to be traumatic for the ones that are cherry picked. That's going to be instant. Landed on a whole nother Earth, and that event in itself is going to be traumatic for the people involved, but it's for the good.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of things.
Well, that's part of part of the panel also. So to make it formal, those who are watching and you all, we'd like to continue this in a part 3, basically continuing the Ascension process, looking at all of its components, because I think this is really transpersonal. This is really getting
The key thing
beyond.
for you, Alfred, is keep things moving in a positive direction.
Exactly.
Because that has an overall effect on the greater public.
Yeah,
That assists with moving things in the right direction, energetically.
exactly.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah. So I would like to invite you both, and we can talk about scheduling separately, but maybe just looking at it, today's July 3rd, you said that there's some events coming up over the next couple of days.
4th and 5th, there's going to be a spectacle going on.
Okay. But what if we reassembled on Wednesday, July 17th? Would that be a good day?
Yeah, do the every 2 weeks type of thing.
That's a great.
Get on that kind of schedule. Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
That's exciting. That's like wild.
Yeah.
That's a noble idea. Thank you.
Okay, great. And that would be at noon Pacific time. And
Which is 3 my time, yeah.
Yeah. And
What?
So yeah.
Keep a positive outlook for folks.
I like that, because then it gives us, plus, you know, the listeners and our friends and viewing audience and stuff like that, and those people that we're helping, you know, gives them something to look forward to as well.
Exactly.
And, you know,
Good.
yeah, rather than it's a great idea. Thank you.
Well,
The technology to have everybody healthy, healed, and fed already exists.
Well,
The only folks
Good.
that are holding it back are the ones we're taking out and starting to make a public spectacle of. So.
Yeah. And so this will be out shortly. If there are any links, either Patty or Karen, that you'd like to have go along, any special links that you'd like to have go along with this panel, please just send me them via Skype over the next hour or two.
Yeah.
And
sure. Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Health stuff.
And I'll be able to share this with you probably later on today or first thing tomorrow. And thank you very much. This has been a very enlightening journey. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been really awesome. I've had a lot of positive feedback, just to let you know. And I've done some amazing friends, clients, whatever, sessions with people to help them. And so there's been a lot happening, even on this, like with people just, you know, reading, making comments, making connections, opening things up, you know, whether it was like Curtis Bennett or whoever it might be, to different things in different ways. So there's been a lot of dot to dot, and thank you for the opportunity. I've had the ability to help educate and coach and do some really nice holistic health stuff with people. So if they want to do it, they can still get a hold of me.
Oh,
And
excellent.
for me, I have better things to do with my life than correcting posts from our Google.
Right.
You know, people need
Well, no, this is really awesome stuff. I mean, this is really amazingly tremendous educational journeys that are being shared here. So I want to thank you both, and I look forward to our next chapter. And with that, until, as they say,
Bid adieu.
yeah.
Live long and prosper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
That's the old,
Until soon.